Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to season 5 and episode number 648, I believe, of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Thursday, May 15th, 2025, and it's a great day here at the Beaver Lodge. Definitely, it's just gray. Just doesn't look like it's gonna rain, but it's just pretty much that. It's the scientific term for the weather. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver. Pronouns he, him. Hey, Mr. Beaver, and with me as always, looking very good and blue, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corbin Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Before we go any further, Mr. Grizzly, how's your mental health today, sir?
I think it's pretty good. Physical health could be better. The old allergies are taking their toll on me again. And when it's overcast, I find the pollen just sort of hangs in the air a little longer. So, although I keep looking at the pollen report saying it's mild and low, but I'm like, yeah, but why do I feel like this?
Yeah, jeez. Ugh.
So, yeah, it's just what it is. Busy day ahead of me. I have a few things to attend to. I have a line on a possible job,
Yes.
and that's all I'm going to say. That's all. I don't want to jinx it, and I don't want to get my hopes up. But it could turn out to be very good if I land it. So we'll find out. I got to send in some forms, fill out some forms, send them in, go get my security check done, and we'll see what happens. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, that's okay. Something else will come along. But you know how you get a vibe on something going, this is what I want.
Yep.
This feels right.
Yep.
This is what I should be doing.
Yep.
That's what I got. So.
Okay. So kids and cubs, a little audience participation right now, right? If you believe in fairies, clap real loud. Let's get Mr. Grizzly talk. All right. Hey, I'm using the rainbow powers that I got. I'm just sending the vibes. There's just a little sparkle there.
Fair enough.
All around. Every little bit helps. All right. We're gonna have a little bit of an unconventional show because Mr. Grizzly has a hard out at 8. So we'll load up on the video first. And then we'll do a little more talking afterwards. But before we get into the video, Mr. Grizzly, we had a little bit of a laugh because yesterday, one team made it to the semifinal of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah.
Oilers, yeah.
In dramatic fashion too.
I know.
1-0 overtime. I didn't stay up to watch the whole game. I was too tired. I had to go to bed. And the
I
late
fell
starts.
a couple of times in it, and then woke up and after micro sleep 15 minutes, then rewinded.
Mhm.
I have to see how it ends.
Well, so yeah, I watched some replays this morning, but it was the Leafs game. I watched that one, and I was like, this just keeps getting worse by the minute. It's like, oh, it's 4-0. Oh, now it's 5. Oh, now it's 6-0. Oh, it's 6-1. And then Leafs latest on Twitter put this up. The Maple Leafs come up just short in Game 5. How is a 6-1 loss just short? They pulled their backup goalie to put their third stringer in.
Especially when you only score your one in the third period.
Like, in what world is a 6-1 loss just short?
In conservative land.
I guess. I don't want to pile on to the Leafs for that loss, but holy crap.
It's a razor thin minority.
Yeah.
They just lost. The Vegas Golden Knights, they just lost.
1-0. Yeah.
In overtime. It was 6-0 before the Leafs showed up to play.
Mr. Jim, I guess you can find the silver lining in it. It's just short because they came in second in the game.
Yes, they won the silver medal.
The participation trophy, I guess, is what they're getting for that one. Golf Leafs golf. I mean, really, it's all over the line right now.
Jeez. Yeah, they're down 2 in the series now.
Yeah, I predicted this though, and some people are like, "Oh, don't be." I go, "Look, man, they're gonna fold. They don't know how to win. They just don't. They can play a great regular season, but a lot of these guys want to be on the golf course right now, and it certainly shows in the way they played last night. They don't want to be there. They don't want it enough.
It's like if you can't find the juice at 2-2 in the series.
Yeah, and lose by 5 goals.
Yeah. I guess if we're trying to put a positive spin on it, it's not that the Leafs did worse. It's just that the other team decided that they were going to ratchet it up 4 more notches, and the Leafs couldn't keep up.
Well,
but it looks like they went down in quality yesterday.
The Florida won the Stanley Cup last year, so they're defending Stanley Cup champions, and they didn't have a whole lot of changes on the team for the worse. That's for damn sure. So they're not going to go down without a fight. If they go down, they won't go down without a fight. So,
Leafs, did you think they were going to make it easy?
Well, and now they got to go to game. Was that game 5 last night?
Yep.
Yeah, that's game 5 last night.
No.
Oh, the Senators? No, they got defeated by the Leafs in the first round in 6 games. So, Dan asking, where's the Senators? I'm like, they got knocked out by the Leafs. I'm a realist, dude. I'm not living in some fantasy land here.
It did happen.
Toronto is, on paper, and in the standings, a better team. They are. It's that simple. They played a great series against Ottawa, and they deserved to win it. They earned that victory. I did think it was going to go 7. I did think it was going to go 7, but they outplayed Ottawa. And you got to remember,
and Ottawa played hard.
They did. But a lot of young people, a lot of young players on Ottawa. First time for 98% of the team to ever play in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Yep. So it's a learning experience. I was hoping they'd get out of the first round, but that was, hope and a prayer. I had no belief they would win the Stanley Cup. None. They just, you got to lose a few series over the course of your career before you get to the final. And if you make it to the final, many players never do. But, it was a good series. And this series has been entertaining. Last night was not very entertaining, though, I have to admit. And I'm no Leafs fan, but that was a blowout, and it was not entertaining. It really wasn't.
Yeah, indeed.
I hate to see a blowout, even for a team I dislike. I hate to see it because it's not entertaining, and I want to be entertained. That's why I watch the games, right? So, and last night was not entertaining.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, the Oilers are through, and the Leafs and the oh my God, the Jets are a little up against it.
Yeah, they're really.
Yeah, if we want that all Canadian final, somebody's gonna have to pick something up here.
Well, you've got to come up with all the cliches. Backs against the wall. There is no tomorrow. Down to the wire. Like
Yep,
it's what it is.
yep.
You
It is.
lose. That's it.
Oh, the tension. Oh. Now, Cubs, if you're following the PWHL, we didn't mention it yesterday, but the Ottawa Charge did win their first playoff game at home against Montreal Victoire. It was a bit of a slower game after they played 2 games and almost a full period 2 days before. I was watching them, and it was like every now and then I'd see somebody that had a burst of speed. It's like, okay, you go, girls. Game of the puck, go to the net. And then it was like, oh.
little tired, were they? Yeah, I didn't.
It was a bit of. I remember watching the first PWHL match, and let's just say the skating was a little slow.
Yeah. That happens.
Understandably, right?
Happens.
But the Ottawa Charge did win it to take a 2-1 series lead in that one. And in the other series, the Minnesota Frost eliminated the Toronto Scepters last night to advance to the final. If I'm not mistaken, the Minnesota Frost won it last year. The whole
I believe they did. Yes. Yeah.
So,
it could be Ottawa and Minnesota in the final because there are only 6 teams and only 4 get into the playoffs, right? But it looks like they're adding 2 teams next year.
yeah, Seattle and Vancouver.
Yeah, Seattle and Vancouver. So
Yeah.
that's great. That's awesome.
I think it's fantastic.
I want the league to grow because it's entertaining hockey. It really is.
Yeah. And if you're following the WIHF, there's some really interesting things going on with Team USA. One, it lost to Team Switzerland the other day, 3-0. And yesterday, its match against Norway had to go into overtime.
Really?
Yeah, they were tied 5-5. The United States won it, but Norway finally got its first point of the tournament going into overtime against the United States.
Wow.
Not sure what's happening with that with the team there. Team USA has some surprising results. Team Canada was not in action yesterday, but they are today against Team Austria, if you are into that. And that match will be going live at about 2:20 p.m. Eastern time if you got your flags and you're doing your patriotic "Go Canada, go!" All right. Because Mr. Grizzy's on the schedule here. Yesterday, we're in the basically first full day of the full new government, cabinet sworn in and whatnot. And there were some interesting things that were said and that happened. As a communications professional, one of the things that I keep on talking about on this show is something called noise, right? You have a message, and then people say things or do things, whatnot, that add noise to the message that either distract from the message that you're trying to do or make it harder to understand or take you off on a tangent. Now you're no longer talking about the main point that you wanted to talk about. There was a lot of that going on. First of all, there were the people that were passed over for cabinet who made some comments who, didn't seem so happy about that. Yet Jonathan Wilkinson didn't seem too happy. Bill Blair apparently wasn't all too happy that he was left out, but he deserved to be left out long ago. There was, and of course, we talked about Nate Erskine-Smith, who yesterday on Power and Politics showed up and gave an interview where I think he was aware that what he had said maybe was not the most judicious move, and actually did frame it really, really well. Because he did write a thread and said it was like one comment in a thread, and yes, it's human to be disappointed, and yes, it is human if you were going to retire, and then Trudeau says like, please stay, like this will make you the housing minister. And then Carney comes in and keeps him as housing minister in that intermediate cabinet, thus giving him the sense that, and then the rug pulled out under. So yes, it is absolutely human, but he really, in that interview, framed it in that sense. It's like, of course, well, it's natural that I would be, but I mean, it's like one little thing in this whole other thing where I wished everybody well, and I am going to stay in the seat, and I will be working hard, and you don't know what happens, and I'll be able to get back to the podcast and all that kind of stuff. And And he was asked, hey, Bonnie Crombie, there's that review coming. Would that be interesting for you if that doesn't work? And they gave the diplomatic answer. So, like this, there's lots of stuff yet to happen there before that even would be a possibility. So he's not there yet.
The thing is, everybody's going to remember the derogatory remark.
Yeah, everyone's going to remember. But at least he came back and he did the damage control that was necessary and everything he did say was true.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't a big stretch, right? It's just, but it could be like in the moment you find out and you write something and then it's like, ugh, fuck. Maybe should not have done it. In that way. But he was able to reframe it and make it seem like it was like listen, I was just being human.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, I think everybody could forget that. So, and again,
wishful thinking on his part, I think.
Might be, but could, because the thing with these things is you got to do it fast.
Yeah.
Right. Can't let it sit 5 or 6 days and then turn around. So, well, gee, I was only being human. It happened the day before he got the critique, went on Power and Politics, the main show the next day, gave an 8-minute interview, put it in context like this, and said absolutely nothing else during that interview to add other noise. Didn't try to distract with something else, didn't go on an attack on anybody, just like at a human moment.
Well, write the email, but don't press send. Write the tweet, but save it in drafts. And like Crystal Murray's saying here, no one is entitled to a cabinet position. I get being disappointed, but the sense of entitlement is wild.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It's like, dude,
and
the job was never yours.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's easy for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he had the job. Right. This is the specific nuance here, is that he was going to leave to go do other things.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was given the minister's job, and then he was kept in it. Had Carney not left him in it this time, that was one thing, but left him.
Yeah. So I understand.
So it could create, oh, wow. Okay. Look, I guess he thought this was a good decision. And then he finds out after he runs again, after he has another at least 2-year, if we're minority 4, if it goes all the way, commitment, right? Yeah, I think many of us would feel the same way in that circumstance. But then again, of course, the wisdom comes with what you do with that feeling, right? So maybe not the wisest decision with the feeling, yes, but enough political sense come back. And yes, it is true.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. Nobody's entitled. But when that happens, you do kind of have a feeling that you might have a leg up coming back. And that didn't happen. So it was probably more of a brutal surprise, really, that way, than had he had been let down the previous time.
Well, this is from Hyperty 007. I love how the first real announcement on interprovincial trade was Ford setting up a booze deal with Wap Canoe.
Yes.
What is it with Doug Ford, a man who purportedly does not imbibe, really loves to give alcohol and access to alcohol to everyone?
If it involves booze, cars, or developers, Doug's all over it. If it involves anything else, he's got nothing for you.
I don't understand. Again, a man who purportedly does not consume alcohol.
Yeah. Better healthcare? How about a tunnel? Better foster care? Hey, how about I make that tax cut permanent on gas? It's like better education for your kids? Hey, how about I get these plots of land I got for sale?
Hey, Doug, education and healthcare are suffering. We're going to spend billions to build this tunnel under the 401. I'll probably never live to see it. And we're making the gas tax cut permanent. Doug, we need a source of revenue.
Yes.
For the province. We need a source of revenue. Cutting the gas tax is stupid, number one. Number two, building a tunnel that nobody really wants, when we could just say, look, just tear up the contract with the 407 people because they owed us billions and you let it go away. Tear up the contract, or as was it Merritt Stiles suggested, the province of Ontario pays all toll fees for truckers using the 407. So it would get trucks off the 401 and onto the 407. Make it exclusive. I'm like, that would be great. That would be wonderful. It's never going to happen because he wants to build a tunnel that everybody says is stupid.
Doug Ford digging a hole.
Yeah.
Typical. Emblematic.
From PMC Bio, it's admittedly booze is a huge part of the most interprovincial trade barriers. That
Right.
is correct. Yes.
Yes. By the way, just a little aside, Hyper T 007. Hey there. There was a comment the other day on the show, and I was mid-sentence, so I didn't have a chance to act on it. But over the course of the weekend, because my Beaver Suite is into science, well, NSERC, the big national organization that funds scientific research, had a science rendezvous in Kingston where there was a whole bunch of people, like kids and university students, and all like showing stuff about science. So I was there and I learned the difference between fission and fusion nuclear reactors, and how the color separates if you sort of block the white, how the sun the sun is yellow, but really the sun's light is white, and that's how we see color, and all that kind of stuff. So learned lots of little things. There was a young man. He must have been maybe like 10 at the most, maybe 11, who did an experiment on which soda pop is actually better for your teeth. By he had collected some baby teeth and just let them marinate in pop for a whole. And then, like I said, you got to see what the teeth look like. I mean, but I'm sitting there and I'm watching, I'm going through, you know what? This is something I actually do want to know. Don't drink a lot of pop, but when I do, why not drink the one that's the least worse for your teeth? Right?
I had a ginger ale the other day because my stomach was a little off, and admittedly, I do love a Canada Dry ginger ale. But that being said, it's not the same ginger ale as when I was a kid.
No, it's not.
They've added a ton of sugar to it that wasn't there before.
Yeah,
because I noticed it. It used to be, I didn't enjoy the taste of it when I was younger because it was just sort of bitter and strong, but it was good for your stomach.
Yeah.
Right. But now it's just 47 grams of sugar.
Yeah. So while we were there, I bumped into Kit Hyper T.
Oh, okay.
Say hello, and that was a wonderful encounter. So it was really, really nice to meet you. And please, if you see me on the street again, do not hesitate to say hello. I always enjoy meeting people. It's always a little weird at first. It's still new to me. So if I seem a little odd at first or a little quiet, it's just because I'm a little shocked and surprised that someone recognized me. But I do very, very much enjoy it when people say hello. So don't let the first 5 seconds where I'm like, be your impression. It was really nice. I was there with the family and taking in science, so we always support people wanting to learn more about stuff, and it's always nice to bump into a fan. So hello to you, and hello to the entire family, and hope everyone's doing.
I got 2 quick hits for you before we get to the meat of everything here. The first one, I looked at the video. I showed you the video earlier. I'll show that quickly in a moment. But the other thing I want to talk about that just came across my feed, this is from Newsweek. This is interesting. Cotter's gift to Trump is unsold plane it's been trying to dump for years.
Oh, no.
The jet, a lavishly configured version of Boeing's largest passenger aircraft, has been lingering without a buyer since being put up for sale in 2020, according to aircraft listings and aviation analysts. It served the Qatari royal family and has been sitting unsold for years.
Oh, wait a minute. The big gift that Donald Trump said he would be stupid not to take isn't actually hand-me-down that Qataris don't even want. Yeah, and he gets this big honor?
Yeah.
Okay, here. Kids and cups. This is where we're talking about where conservatism has gone so wrong. And you know that our conservatives always take a tip, right? You're wondering why Danielle Smith is doing all the things that she's doing with hockey tickets or whatnot? This guy. What is the value of this plane?
$400 million, I think.
And he sees no problem.
No, it's totally
with the government of another nation supplying a plane number one, security issues.
It's
Big
also
time.
13 years old, the
Yes.
aircraft.
Yes. And then, of course, it has to be retrofitted because Air Force One is not supposed to be a luxury liner, right? It's supposed to be some place where you can have a military meeting. Got it. Right? So there's security, right? That plane has to be pretty much indestructible while it's in the air. It has to be able to refuel while it's in the air. It has to have security and comms and whatnot so that you can speak to the Joint Chiefs of Staff and say, yeah, press
Yeah,
the red
exactly.
button if
Well,
needed, right? Like this, and not be intercepted. It's not just so they would have to spend about $1 billion retrofitting it to make it safe,
Correct.
which is more than the plane is actually worth. But hey, the art of the deal.
Correct. Only he's like, the Boeing 747 is being given to the United States Air Force Department of Defense, not to me. It is a gift from a nation, Qatar, that we have successfully defended for many years. It will be used by our government as a temporary Air Force One until such time as our new Boeings, which are very late on delivery, arrive. Why should our military and therefore our taxpayers be forced to pay hundreds of millions of dollars when they can get it for free from a country that wants to reward us for a job well done? This big savings will be spent instead to make America great again. Only a fool would not accept this gift on behalf of our country, except that it's going to cost $1 billion to retrofit.
And it's not a gift to the country.
No,
I'm like
it's
trying
a
to compare
bribe.
to the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
The Statue of Liberty, the guy who was president at the time didn't get to ride the Statue of Liberty and then didn't get to keep it when it was done. This plane is going to be loaned to the president of the United States for the time he's president of the United States. And after that, it's going to be donated to his library or something like that, or
So
foundation or something.
it's
So
going to him.
for them, yeah, so that he can keep flying out. Like this is not a gift to the nation. Donald Trump, I know that you are the ultimate in l'état c'est moi, but you are not the United States of America. You are not the nation. We keep on saying this on this show, right? Whenever United States, Trump says, this is terrible for America, replace America. Take away the A from America, take away the Rica from America, and that's what he's really saying. This is bad for me. Can't spell America without me.
That's right. Well, in other Trump news, and then we'll get into the meat of today's topics, I got to show you this because this is just... Watch this, folks.
Because as you know, we won 3 elections, okay? And some people want us to do a 4th.
Nope.
I don't know.
What?
We'll have to think about that. You saw the new hat. The hottest hat is, it says Trump 2028. We're driving the left crazy when you see that. We didn't need that hat, but it was...
Well, not 3 mandates. And number one, and this is true for everyone, right? Regardless of the party, if your number one objective is to make the left crazy, or to make the right crazy, if your priority as a politician is to make sure that your cup is full of liberal tears or conservative tears, you're doing it wrong.
That's not your job. It's not what you're supposed to be doing.
Doing it wrong.
It wrong.
God damn.
What is wrong with you? Seriously.
Your brain, it's broke. Gee, and fix the empathy chip while you're at it. Get an upgrade. All right, so Mr. Grizzly has a heart out. So what we're going to do is we're going to present to you a series of clips very quickly, and then we'll get into them. Prime Minister Carney has taken on the first day, had a meeting with his full cabinet. As one of the first things, and we'll get into these things right now. I'm just doing a short version so Mr. Grizzly can be here, and then we'll go back in depth. Acted on the tax cut. Of course, they have to pass legislation, but put things in motion so that it will be there on July 1st. That is the being described, at least by François-Philippe Champagne, as like one of the signature things of the platform. I don't think it was a signature element of the platform, to be totally honest. It was just what the Liberals did to, the ante to be in the game to compare with the Conservatives, so that the tax cuts wouldn't be the differentiating issue between both parties.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's still a $5 to $6 billion expense out of the budget. So I mean, it is a big piece. But I don't think it was high. It was it was just like, yeah, we're doing a text cut too, and then move on with the campaign. So I don't think it was really a signature piece, but it's being marketed now as a signature affordability piece post thing. So he took some action on that. It was like the big news, or is at least intended to be the big news. But then, like Nate Erskine-Smith, people talked. Now,
Yes.
I don't know if this again is just like first day lack of message discipline, not everybody together, or if this is a thing where Mr. Carney really is going to do government by cabinet and let cabinet ministers talk, and that means sometimes if they're going to say something at 10, at 3 o'clock you're in front of the cameras and doing cleanup, beep beep beep, but that's what government by cabinet is, and it can be messy, right? Because right now there's been a focus, especially with the Harper years, on like this, with like rigid, almost robotic message discipline, where nobody has a right to say anything, speak their mind, and everybody sounds exactly the same. So that's the thing. If you're going to have an independent cabinet that like this, that are going to be leading stuff like this, some of them are going to run their mouth and say stuff, and it's like, well, clean up on aisle 27. So that's going to be happening. So we have to get used to that if that's what it's going to be, right? But we had 3 or 4 instances where people said things in scrums post cabinet announcement that made people go, huh? So the first one on the list I have is Stephen Guilbeault, is it? Yeah. All right. He had this to say.
Mark Carney
Beaver Smith says that she's still concerned that you're part of cabinet and also the new selection of Mr. Boozing for the environment minister. She says it's too close of a tie to you. What do you say in response to that?
I think we will have to agree to disagree with Premier Smith. We think that protecting the environment, fighting climate change is important. Lots of Canadians believe that as well. It was a central element of our platform, and we will make good on our commitments.
The Prime Minister last night on TV seemed to open the door to potentially changing the emissions cap or the IAA to get projects built. What do you think of what he said?
Well, these are important conversations that we will need to have in the coming weeks.
Premier Smith is saying that you're anti-pipeline still. What do you say in response to her concerns just broadly about the cabinet, and how do you deal with national unity? How do you address that right now?
So on pipelines, people should remember that we bought a pipeline, Trans Mountain, and that is only used right now about 40% capacity. So I think before we start talking about building an entire new pipeline, maybe we should maximize the use of existing infrastructure. And the Canadian Energy Regulator, as well as the International Energy Agency, are telling us that probably by 2028, 2029, demand for oil will peak globally, and it will also peak in Canada. So as far as I know, there are no investors right now, there are no companies that are saying that they want to build an east-west pipeline. And as you know, these things are built by companies, not...
All right. Put a pin in that one, because we'll have to get back to it, because I said, normally we would discuss them right away, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave room for Mr. Grizzly to share his thoughts, because he's got to go, and then I'll come back with mine afterwards. But do you have a quick thought on that one, sir?
Some people strongly dislike Stephen Guilbeault. Guilbeault. I don't. I admire and respect the man, and he's a seasoned politician. He's good at what he does. I don't see eye to eye with him on everything. I don't see eye to eye with anyone on everything. It's just not possible. But I think he's a good minister. I think he's a good politician, and I think he'll do very good work in this position. And his comment was, hang on a sec, we're only running Trans Mountain at 40% capacity. Let's ramp that up before we start building another pipeline. And you still have to deal with Quebec, Indigenous people throughout the province of Quebec, because you want to build it through their land. There's a lot of issues. Somebody suggested, well, Mark Carney should use the notwithstanding clause to force the pipeline through. And I said, I don't think that'll work. He goes, well, why not? I go, Quebec never signed the charter. So the notwithstanding clause does not apply to them. Technically.
Yeah. I mean, they invoke it often enough, so one could make the case by having invoked it, they de facto signed.
Right. But they would make the case that, I'm sorry, but we did not sign. It's like, yeah, but you invoke it, but you didn't sign it. But they're not a signatory. So
but nobody can invoke terms of a contract they did not sign.
Correct. So, but here's the other thing: he can use special executive powers to make the pipeline go through if he absolutely needed to. Right? Wartime powers, he could invoke those, because I think you'd have a charter challenge if he tried to invoke the notwithstanding clause to build a pipeline through Quebec and into New Brunswick to a refinery. Somebody suggested to me the other day what they should ideally do is build a heavy oil refinery in Quebec. I'm like, well, there is a former refinery on the East Island of Montreal that's been sitting empty for 20 plus years. Used to be on the back of the $10 bill, for those of you old enough to remember. Well, they could just retrofit that to do heavy oil, Alberta oil, and then they would get a portion of the proceeds, the profit. A third could go to Quebec, a third to the feds, and a third to Alberta.
Yeah. The other talk I heard about is that there are some refineries in Sarnia. So if you don't want to go all the way east to Quebec, just go to Sarnia and build the things.
Yeah, they just need to be fitted to do heavy oil, right? Because we don't have the capacity to refine Alberta. I forget what type of oil it is.
Canadian Select.
Select. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Yeah. So that we don't have the capacity to do that, but we could retrofit existing refineries to make it work.
All right.
Sarnia, but I think retrofitting the one in Montreal, so the province of Quebec would benefit from it financially, because Blanchette said, look, why would you build a pipeline through when it's going to cost us money to do maintenance on it and we're not getting any money from it?
Right.
And I don't blame him. When it comes to that, it's like, when it comes down to dollars and cents, look, if you want to use my space, you got to rent it from me or lease it from me or give me a piece of the action.
Yeah. Well,
you don't just get to build in my house and I don't get to benefit from any of it. It doesn't work that way.
Thing, right? That Blanchette says, wait a minute. It's like we pay for the subsidies that go to oil and gas. Then we pay for the oil and gas and we get no discount. And then we pay to clean up the mess that the corporations are supposed to clean up, but never do.
Yeah.
What's it for us? And then we have to pay for the mitigation for the increased GHGs. This sounds like a really sucky deal for us. It may work great for you, but for us, this sucks.
I can't argue with him one bit on any of that. He's absolutely right. We subsidize you, and then we have to pay full price for something we subsidized?
Yeah, exactly.
Come on.
Yeah, and then we got to pay to clean up your mess, because once you take the profit from having doing it, you decide to just leave the mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see how this works out for me. So, yeah, you got that. The next one that we have is Gregor Robertson, who is the new Minister of Housing. He was the mayor of Vancouver, which, of course, Vancouver is kind of internationally infamous for its housing. I was listening to a journalist the other day, said I think it was in 2005, she was tasked to go do a report with what kind of house would $1 million buy you in Vancouver. And back in 2005, it was like a postage stamp 20 years ago. So this isn't a new problem. Mayor Gregor Robertson was asked a question that I think he maybe didn't fully understand, because the initial answer to the question is no, and everybody ran with that. But if you actually listen to the end of the answer, the thing to which he said no, right off the bat, is something he says we need to do. But I don't know what he was saying no to, but it clearly wasn't the concept in the question, because in his answer, he ended it by saying yes to the thing he said no to, which is really weird. But everybody just went with the no and stopped listening after that. So let's see what Gregor Robertson had to say.
Do you have a start time on this? Because it's a 9-minute video. I don't have a timestamp.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was the shorter clip.
No, it's 9 minutes. There's no timestamp, so I don't know where you want me to begin with this.
Sorry, I don't. That was my bad. I thought I sent you the really short one. Okay, so let's skip him, and I'll try to find you the short one, send it to you. The next one was Wayne Long. Wayne Long is the MP from Atlantic Canada, who was the first to say that Trudeau had to go, and was offered a parliamentary secretary position this time around. And he's talking, issuing a bit of a typical conservative talking point here.
Just a second till I got it up here. I just got to get it loaded. All right, here we go. That took a couple of seconds. Here we go, sir. And this is the clip. It's only 30 seconds. It's very short, but have a listen.
Shift in leadership style at all that you've noticed so far?
Oh my gosh, I think so, yeah. I mean, I think Mark Carney is exactly what the country is needed and needs. He's well-spoken, he's thoughtful, he's focused, and I think we're going to see our government run like a corporation, which I think is long overdue.
Do you think that criticizing Justin Trudeau brought you at this table at this moment?
Oh, not at all. I think the Prime Minister is well beyond doing favors for people. I think he picks people who are qualified and people that can contribute.
So, run the country like a corporation. I don't like the sound of that at all, not one bit. It's also not realistic because you can't do that. A corporation, you've got, a CEO and a board and all the people that work for you, and CEO can make a decision, the board will vote on it. But ultimately the CEO can say, yeah, we're doing this anyway. Well, you can't do that in a democracy. So I don't think he's going to run it like a corporation. I really don't. He understands the system. He's not a career politician, but he does understand it. And he knows that government is not a corporation. He also knows that government is not supposed to turn a profit. Right? There's services that are provided. Best case scenario, you break even. You don't want to lose money, but sometimes you're going to. It's not like you do. If you have a budget surplus, you did it wrong because somebody somewhere is suffering as a result. There should never be a surplus. Never.
Indeed.
Sure, pay down the debt. Sure, no problem. Work harder to get things paid off. But it's not a for-profit business. The government is a service, and they need to provide services, and they need money to do that. Hence our tax dollars. Well, out of those tax dollars, they need to run the government as a service, hopefully break even. Sometimes you're going to lose. That's why we have deficits. And case in point, the pandemic, the 2008 financial crisis, the trade wars that we're currently in the middle of. You can't run the government like a corporation. You simply can't. You can't. What are you going to do? Fire people? Fire citizens? I'm sorry, you're cut off. Excuse me? No, it doesn't work that way. So I don't know where he's coming up with this ideology, but that's very much a conservative talking point, and I don't believe Mark Carney would be even considering that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think he would. He's never said that.
Yeah. All right. Now, I just sent it to you by email, Mr. Grizzly. It's the shorter one, just the 32-second clip of Mayor Robertson answering the question about housing. And I have in front of me as well a Twitter post by Gregor Robinson that confirms what I said, that the question he answered might have been a little different than it's been portrayed.
Affordable housing, delivering that. Need to go down. No, I think that we need to deliver more supply, make sure the market is stable. It's a huge part of our economy. We need to be delivering more affordable housing. The government of Canada has not been building affordable housing since the 90s, and we've created a huge shortage across Canada. That's where the big need is right now, and I'm very encouraged that the Prime Minister and our commitment right now in government is the double construction.
Okay, so do prices need to go down? No. Then people ran with that and says he doesn't think the housing should be more affordable. But like you just heard him say, that we need to build more affordable housing.
Yeah.
Right? So any thoughts on that, Mr. Grizzly?
I'd like to see housing prices come down, flood the market with new houses, and it'll drop the prices. But we do need to build more affordable housing. The government needs to get back into it, which is what started under Trudeau and is continuing under Mark Carney. They're doing wartime type construction or post-war construction so they can build homes that will be affordable for the average Canadian. And they also need to build what we call MDUs, multiple dwelling units, apartment buildings, towers, building them near transit stations, and not by private developers, but I want to see the government get involved and start doing this too.
Yes.
We got out of it a long time ago. Thanks, Brian Mulroney. Thanks, Jean Chrétien. But now the government is back into it. They never should have gotten out of it because affordable housing, again, should be done at the municipal level. Except the problem is they don't have the money to do it, and the provinces have stopped funding.
Yep.
So the federal government has to step in to do it.
Yep. And
I
until
do understand how this works. Many people don't. They're like, why isn't the federal government? Why'd they get out? Well, they got out of it because Mulroney pulled them out. Chrétien put the final nail in the coffin and shut it closed. And then the provinces stopped funding.
Yep.
That's what happened. And
Harper
this is why
and
we're in this mess.
Pierre, Housing Minister Pierre, finished off what was that? Yeah. All right, Mr. Grizzly. I don't want you to be too late because we have crossed the 8 o'clock threshold. But,
I will head her on out. I got to see. I got an appointment, and I got a lot of stuff on the plate today. Hopefully things work out. I'll talk to you later. Take care.
Good vibes. Good vibes. Go get it, my friend. Go get yours. All right. So we went through the clips really quickly. I had one more thing. There was a big interview with François-Philippe Champagne, but we might be able to bring you some of that another day, but we will still talk about what he said. So let's go through them. First, we had Mr. Guilbeault talking about pipelines. Now, of course, you know that Danielle Smith, you say the word Guilbeault and she breaks out into hives, right? So she does not like him. Now, whether she does not like him or whether it's just out of convenience, she doesn't like him because, Danielle Smith needs the fight. She wants to fight. Right. She wants to fight against everyone. She doesn't actually want to accomplish anything, and we don't know why she wants to fight because when she wins, we don't know what she wants to do with it, really. She doesn't seem very interested in governing in any way, shape, or form. So she just likes the fight. She needs the fight, right? That's all she's about. I'm fighting, I'm fighting, I'm fighting, I'm fighting. But she doesn't actually get anything done. So that's why Julia DeCousin, as soon as she was named, because she was parliamentary secretary, oh my gosh, she basically pulled a Polyev. Because she's just like Trudeau. She's just like Guilbeault, right? Doesn't know anything about her, really, but she's just like Guilbeault. Stephen Guilbeault, the point was to give him something that did have something related to the environment, so which is why you got the Canadian identity and culture, and we threw Parks Canada in there. So Stephen Guilbeault still has some responsible for things environmental, but it's almost all related to stuff like biodiversity, right? Protecting coasts, national parks, protected marine areas, that type of stuff, right? Which, of course, also can have some climate change related instances or elements, but it's not the core of his function. So they're trying to keep him in cabinet because Stephen Guilbeault is extremely respected within the environmental movement, extremely respected in the province of Quebec, and the federal government does owe a lot to Quebec because the reason why they nearly got a majority is because they gained seats in Quebec. So Stephen Guilbeault was not at any risk whatsoever of leaving cabinet, even though, and I've said it myself, he probably should, because even though he is extremely knowledgeable and good on his file of things having to do with the environment, he's not the most effective communicator. And seems to just make people mad and then anything else. But he's not going to go because he's valuable. Guilbeault, in his comment, seems to be contradicting what Mr. Carney is saying, and that's where the problem is here, because Mr. Guilbeault was making these comments, Mr. Carney did an exclusive interview with Vashi Kapelos, CTV's Power Play. Note that the first exclusive interview did not go to Rosie Barton. Just saying. Seems Carney remembers. So he's sitting across from Vashi Kapelos, and she's really questioning him hard on pipelines and whatnot. And as an aside, there's a lot of people that made a whole bunch of comments both ways, saying that she was rude and terrible and always interrupting, and vice versa. He was rude and interrupting the women, always interrupting. I didn't see that at all. I saw a spirited conversation and an exchange where, like, some people say something, and it's like somebody has something to say, and they maybe say something like this. But overall, Nobody was slighting each other or going out of the way. I didn't find that Vashi Kapelas was inordinately or particularly or rudely aggressive in asking questions and in interrupting when she wanted some clarification or she felt things going the wrong way. And I did not feel that Mr. Carney was being condescending or rude or nasty to women by interrupting when he did every now and then. It was a spirited, good exchange conversation, like many of us have. There is a question, however. Mark Carney, I think journalists are not used to politicians actually trying to answer questions, right? So we get a lot of these questions that seem a little bit about the junior high soap opera element of all of it. I think Canadian journalists are going to have to learn relatively quickly that it's going to be okay for them to come with questions about substance, about the policy itself, rather than the he said, she said, and I can't believe he did that, and what is your reaction to that type questions, because he's actually willing to answer them. So there might be an adjustment needed here. Canadian media might not be used to or equipped to a prime minister who actually wants to directly answer a question, if it's a good question, so or an interesting question. So that might be that might be an adjustment. But the interview itself, personally, I didn't. I see a lot of people trying to find things to get me angry about there on that one. It was a spirited conversation in which there was a lot of ideas exchanged, and in that conversation, when talking about energy. And particularly, you have to remember that of all the time, because Alberta is just driving this so much when we're talking about energy, that it's really oil and gas, oil and gas. Energy is larger than oil and gas, right? That's why Prime Minister Carney keeps on talking about conventional and renewables. We have oil, we have gas, but we also have hydro, and there's nuclear, and there is tidal, and then there is wind, and there is solar, and there's whatever else. Now, there could be that we'll discover down the road, but all of it is energy, and we have to talk about all of it as energy. So the energy discussion often gets hijacked by oil and gas exclusively. But he did say specifically that if we are going to do certain things, and here's the thing, is when we're having the climate discussion, this is often always an all or nothing discussion. You got to leave it all on the ground, because if you burn anything, like this. These are idealist positions. I mean, yes, if as humanity, if we were really, really smart humans, we would have learned long ago not to poop where we eat. But we haven't, right? We tend not to do that. We tend to pollute our food sources for some reason. I think we presented, we showed you a clip yesterday where I think it was the elder that said that what we do to the earth, we do to ourselves. And how, right? So in this debate here, in this whole thing, if we're talking about pipelines, yes, there is something to be gained for the entire planet if oil, natural gas, for example, that we're able to get out of the ground in such a way that we keep on reducing the carbon emissions related to that, and the processing it and shipping that. If we can reduce, and a country is buying that and not using coal instead, or dirtier oil or whatnot instead, yes, that is better. It's not the best. The best would be not to burn anything at all, right? But it is better. Problem is that the conservatives keep on saying that we should get credit for that if we do that. No, we get credit for the processes that reduce the intensity when we produce the oil and when we ship it, but we do not get the credit because for the actual use of the oil, because that's the decision that another nation has made with their money to displace what they were using with someone else, with something else that's lower intensity. They get that benefit, right? So yes, while it is possible that Canada can do a lot for the world by displacing other types of energy with cleaner ones, even though they are still dirty and still contribute to GHGs, it's still an improvement. It's a step up. It doesn't absolve us of our responsibility to do what we need to do as Canada, as a nation, to reduce our own. We cannot reduce our own by What we do to help other people reduce theirs does not count in our column in terms of reducing our own. We have to do both. If we are going to make that plan to do both, reduce our own, but also create better alternatives at the moment until we have even better ones, then there is a market for that. And we can exploit our energy and sell it to world markets, whatnot, and that there is a very solid business case for that. But if we are going to do that, if we are going to be this energy superpower that displaces a whole bunch of dirtier types of fuel, because with less dirtier types of fuel, they're still dirty, but less as an intermediary step until all the transition happens, then we are going to need pipelines, and we're probably going to need more than one. Right? So you got Stephen Guilbeault at the side saying, like, well, we don't even have to really talk about other ones until this one's full of capacity, which doesn't really make sense. Because if you wait till it's 100% before you even start discussing the other one, if it says takes 10 to 12 years to actually build one, well, you have a 10 to 12 year gap. You got to start talking about it the 10 to 12 years before, if that's how long it takes. Right? So Stephen Guilbeault is a little bit off the mark on that and doesn't seem to be in alignment with that which Mark Carney is saying. So that's the thing with that comment. That's creating a bit of noise, a trip signal here. That's going to have to be cleaned up. Now, what Guilbeault is saying, however, about shipping oil east, that is true. There is no project at all. There's no plan, there's no proposal, there's no nothing, there's no company that's expressed an interest. It is companies that do that. Because governments are not supposed to be building pipelines, it's supposed to be a company thing, and then we create the conditions for that, and, help us with financing or stuff. But we don't build them specifically. So some could say, well, what about TMX, right? I mean, we did there in a way. But that's sort of the overall vibe that he's given here. We know Guilbeault is not pro an Energy East pipeline, right? That's why he's trying to go in there and make the case that, well, by 2028, 2030, there's no business case there again. Again, that puts him a little at odds with Prime Minister Carney, because Prime Minister Carney does actually see a business case there. So again, some noise here. That's probably not helping in this particular case. It's not that he said anything that was outrageous, really, with regards to pipelines and that type of stuff, even though Danielle Smith and them are going to pick up on that part. It's the fact that his stated position does not seem consistent at all with a position from Prime Minister Carney that was issued on the exact same day, as heard in that interview with Rashid Kapellis. So they're going to have to fix that up. There's a little bit of cleanup there. With regard to Wayne Long running government like a corporation, Mr. Cruz is right. This is terrible talk. It's terrible talk. We do not run a government like a corporation because a government is not a corporation. If government was a corporation, we'd just incorporate as nations. That would be it, right? Government's not a corporation. Corporation has a profit incentive. Because government is supposed to provide services, whether it's profitable or not. Because a government's first responsibility, as I keep on telling, is to keep citizens safe. It's to protect their citizens. Well, there's not much profit in protecting citizens. So you just got to, it's just stuff that you got to do. And then hopefully you have other activities that generate some return that help you if you do that. Like, for example, CBC, I told you, right? Because we're Canada Post. It doesn't make money. Yeah, it's not supposed to. It would be nice if it could. Absolutely, like the LCBO and stuff like that. Some of them do make money. It would be nice if it could, but they're not supposed to. That's not the primary motive for its existing. It's to provide a service to ensure that we are all connected and that we can all receive mail. Right? So, and in a country like Canada, low population density and huge expanse, these things are not going to be profitable. or very likely to be profitable, or might take a whole lot longer than in other countries to become profitable or break even. So that part, I don't get it. That part's not okay. And I think that's what a lot of people understand. If one is being generous, one could take Mr. Long's comments to mean that because Mr. Carney has a lot of private sector experience, there's probably a lot of things from the private sector in terms of organizing meetings, getting to decision points, that type of stuff, more efficient processes and that type of stuff, that could be applied to government, applied and adapted to government to make it run more efficiently. I guess run a slightly more, not corporate-like, but maybe more professionalized. Yes, or more brought into the modern era, more not right-sized, but pointed in the right direction to where it is that we are going now. If we're talking about that, well then yes, of course, government and public service and everything could always be a little more professionalized. There are tons of things that we can learn from the private sector that can be brought, just like there's a lot of practices in the public sector that should probably be present in the private sector too, right? There are things that we can learn, that we can improve or whatnot like this, but the main ethos of running the government like a corporation, because running government cabinet meetings with a bit more of a business sense, I guess, or more in a business style or more in a corporate boardroom style, might have some benefits, right? We happen to have as Prime Minister a man that actually has been in a real boardroom, chairing real boardroom meetings, trying to get to specific goals and objectives and whatnot. There is a lot about that could definitely come into the government and the public service and into the cabinet table and whatnot to help decision making, make things more effective, streamline things. But that's not exactly the same as running government like a corporation. Okay. So if one is being generous, maybe, so Mr. Long might benefit from a couple of weeks or months of media training. Let's just put it that way, to make sure that the words that he selects to say things literally match the intention. One of the things we do as people when we're communicating, just like this, is that we'll often use verbal shortcuts or whatnot, or say something that's close to what we mean, but it isn't exactly the precise word, like this. But we were talking or just with a friend, so you know what I mean, right? And you can do that. In politics, you can't do that. You can't just say things and be kind of close to what you're saying or do a general idea and people not understanding this. But you know what I mean. You have to say specifically what you mean. So if you mean that the government could learn from the private sector and take certain elements and adapt them so that we could professionalize and increase our efficiency and productivity, right? Yes, absolutely. Let's talk about that. Government should be run as a corporation. Yeah, needle on the record. Scratch. Right? So the precision in politics of your words, because in politics, you have to remember that every time you open your mouth, especially if it's on camera or it's being recorded, there is somebody from the other side watching to see if there's a comma misplaced in what you did. So that they can find a way to give another interpretation other than what you had intended to what you said in order to make you look bad. That is the objective. There is a team looking for that, waiting for that to pounce, right? So it is very important. That's why communications people like me are extremely important in government messaging, and not to be brought in at the end, but brought in at the beginning when you're shaping your message, and not only when you think you got your message and then you just had it, somebody said, go out, communicate this. That's why it's very, very important to have these people embedded like this, because they will ask you these really annoying, pedantic questions that drive you crazy and make you go, like this. But it's to distill the thought like this and get it to its most pure essence, so that when you say it at point A, everybody at point B has the greatest chance of understanding it at point B with the precise intent you had when you shaped it at point A. And anything that prevents that is that thing that I call noise. Right? So there is often a theory of communications, the theory of the hypodermic needle. I say something, you're listening, and boom, it injects like this. You understand what I said exactly, and then we go. Then we learned, well, it's not exactly that. Right? It's not I say something, it goes into your brain, and then, okay, that's my new knowledge. Go, right? It's a little more complicated than that. So, but the initial thinking in communications really was the hypodermic needle theory. So it's not that, right? We've learned later on, like with social marketing and all that kind of stuff, somebody has to be exposed to a message like 10, 12, 30 times before it starts to even start to register and remain in the mind, right? So that's why advertising campaigns cost so much, because it's not seeing a commercial once doesn't do it enough for most people. It's like it's after the 10th or 11th time they see it. It's like, oh yeah, that's that thing, right? And it has to be, of course, everything in that ad or in that communication piece also has to be, the tone, packaging, promotion, all that kind of stuff, right? All the marketing things in it have to be thought of and decided and precise and sharp and then delivered and then, with an execution that's flawless, right? So again, there's plenty of opportunities for noise to get into a message. So Mr. Long might benefit from a little media training with regard, because if what he was talking about was about professionalizing and borrowing some stuff from the private sector that can make us more efficient in the public sector, then absolutely. And there are things that's a legitimate comment, right? But government should be run as a corporation. That tends to get a certain political demographics back right up instantly. It's almost like a code word that makes people go, ugh. So again, the edges on that comment might need to be filed down and softened a little, would be my sort of recommendation there. Then we had Gregor Robertson, who is a former mayor of Vancouver, asked about housing. And in this one, Gregor Robertson, in that tweet that I mentioned that he posted after, made a very, very good comment here. And in this case, I think he is correct in this case. And he says, the question I answered was about reducing the price of a family's current home, which for most Canadians is their most valuable asset. The question wasn't, should homes be more affordable? Of course they should. And then again, define affordability, because it doesn't mean the same thing to everyone. So the question wasn't, should homes be more affordable? Of course they should. Vancouver led the country on co-ops, rental-only zoning, and stuff like that. So here he is. You take that little clip and you say like this, well, should prices come down? No, we need to increase supply. And then you just run with that. This is, oh my God, how can the mayor of Vancouver think that the prices of houses shouldn't be lower? He believes that there should be more affordable housing, a greater supply. We have a supply issue. There's not enough housing that is affordable, right? So, and prices go up. Scarcity, right? Law of supply and demand. But the thing is that if you go out and you tell Canadians, because a lot of them for whom their house is the biggest chunk of their retirement savings plan, that yes, with the stroke of the pen, we're just going to devalue the worth of your house. That would probably not go over very well, and there would probably be a lot of cascading economic consequences resulting from that probably would not be good for the economy in any way, shape, or form. So the goal is probably not to lower the house price, but to lower the pace at which house prices are increasing, which you could do by increasing supply. But I mean, that's going to be like, as Mr. Carney said, an exercise in increasing supply that would be sustained over many, many years, producing many, many more houses than we do now in order to achieve that. And then when you add the immigration caps and all that kind of stuff, you reduce some demand on that. So you're working on a whole bunch of different elements to try to bring things a little more in line. So what you probably want to do is not decrease the price of a house to create some type of economic shock and panic, but decrease the rate at which house prices are increasing, ensuring that people can have more money, better wages and whatnot in order to be able to save and afford a house better, and then boost the supply. And when you're boosting the supply, is because government used to be involved in housing. The units used to belong to the government. The government got out of that. Well, we've learned that the market will not build housing geared to income on its own. There's nothing for it. So that's a business which the government needs to get into again. Right? We have the issue of people buying up. So, well, if the government's just going to build all these houses and then some private corporations are just going to buy it and keep it, well, that's why you want government purpose-built affordable housing, so that it's owned by the government, so that it can't be bought by these organizations in order to do that. So government really does need to get to the business. So when Gregor Robertson is not saying, is saying, I'm specifically saying, all Canadians who own a house, I do not believe that the prices of your houses should go down. But we do need to make sure that there is much more affordable housing. And if we're talking about doing affordable housing in a way that most benefits the nation, government housing for government nation, it's going to be housing that's rent geared to income for the people who have the least ability to afford housing. Because, as we mentioned, when you don't have a house, there are a whole bunch of other costs. Health, run-ins with the justice system, not being able to have a stable place to rest your head, which makes it so that you can't hold a job and therefore be a more contributing member to society than a member of society on whom we have to spend more money than the money that person adds to society by being a consumer or a worker, right? So, and knowing that there are always going to be people, as Mr. Grizzly says, that who will not have that capacity for work, and that's just a reality, and we have to have a system, because if we're judging society by the manner in which we treat the most vulnerable of us, a society that takes care of people who are not able to work for whatever reason it is, right? But when somebody could be able to work, if only they had a stable home and regular access to health, well, why would we not do that? Why would we not maximize the potential of every citizen in this nation? And why would we not start, if the government wants to save money, right? If we want to, as we say, spend less to invest more, then if we invest in housing for the most vulnerable, and by doing so, we reduce hospital visits and encounters with the law and any other types of that stuff, well, then all of a sudden building that house was profitable, wasn't it, for the nation? That's what I mean. It's these series of trade-offs that we always have to remember, right, in government. If you're spending money on one thing, you're not spending money on that other thing. That other thing you're not spending money on, there's an opportunity cost that you incur for not spending money on that thing. And you've got to compare these two things, and overall, which is going to do the best for the nation, or the situation, or which problem is way more pressing and that we have to throw more resources to at the moment. So these are complicated decisions. I don't envy anybody who's at the cabinet table. It's because you're always making some people's lives better. And by choosing to make these people's lives better, you're choosing not to do something for another group. And therefore, you say, you got to wait a little longer or your life's going to be tough. Right? That's the day-to-day reality of these decisions. You're affecting real people in very, very real ways. These are very heavy decisions. Is that we hope that we do not have people who are flippant in the room making in a flippant manner. Right? Every single one of these decisions is extremely consequential and could have a very major impact on a fellow citizen's life, if not yours, directly. fellow citizens. And we do need to care about this. We need to go beyond caring about just how does this affect me, and how does this affect my neighbor, my family, my community, my neighborhood. Right? You got to think a little larger than that. So, Gregor Robertson, this comment is probably not one that is noise. This is a comment where opportunistically the other side saw a point of communication that could be interpreted more than one way, especially without any context from before, because we just hear the end of the question. You think, oh, prices should come down. We don't hear the conversation that came before that puts that in the context of, should we be lowering the prices of houses that people currently own? Should we be working on efforts for those prices to go down? So, and it's really ironic to watch conservatives lighting their hair on fire. Can't believe that Mayor Gregor Robertson said that the prices of homes don't need to be more affordable. But at the same time, the conservatives are the ones that are running around the country for the last few elections, promising us for sure that they know for sure that the Liberals plan to impose capital gains on the sale of your primary residence, which has never happened and has never even been remotely close to proposed. So, conservatives can't at the same time say that the prices of houses have to come down and then pretend that they're upset that people would have to pay more capital gains on the sale of their primary home. Right? You get less money if you're paying capital gains on the sale of your primary home, but if the price of your home has to go down, when you lose money on the sale of your you end up in the same place, whether it's through a capital gain or whether it's through other government decisions that lower the price of homes and affect your retirement. You end up at the same destination. So conservatives are a bit talking out of the both sides of their mouth on this one. Personally, I don't believe that there should be capital gains on the sale of your first home. There could be a case to income test it, as we do often in Canada. If your home sells for more than X number, I don't know, like 5 or 6 million or whatnot, maybe a slight capital gain. But then again, that always, as we saw, like this, we want to include the capital gains inclusion by a little bit more, and everybody lost their minds. So, these are things that you could make a case for. But as soon as you say these things, you're going to get a whole bunch of people going, "Wow!" like this, and then you got to fight that, do all the work to fight that before you can start communicating your message. And sometimes that's just too much damn work. So, but on this one here, I'm not sure that there was more that Mayor Robertson could have done on his end to reduce the noise in this question, because this is more a matter of where the tape starts and people hear the question that's being asked without the context that preceded it, and then just hear Gregor Robertson say no before he goes into the rest of the answer, and then they just run with that. But again, as a politician, gotta be clear with that one. So that instead of saying no as the start, there maybe the rule that they used to teach us in school when we were young about answering a question was to include part of the question in the answer, right? What time is it? We say 8 o'clock. So the time is 8 o'clock, right? If you say the time is, then you know. So had he said, for example, should prices come down, had he said, I don't believe that we should lower the prices of houses that people are currently living in, but we do need to make future housing more affordable, that would have been more clear. So sometimes you got to take the portion of the question and include it in your answer when you're doing PR, to make sure that when the people are taking things, that when the video starts, they know exactly what it is that you are answering, because you included the portion of the question in your answer. And that reduces the opportunity for people to do that. So if there was any media training I would have given to Gregor Robertson with that, that would probably be where I would have ended up. It's like always take a portion of the question when you do the answer. That way, when the video starts, people always know what it is that you're answering. Because they can't just say, oh, well, this thing he said no to applies to that. Say, well, especially if you don't show the question, then the answer no could be that you can say it's to anything, right? And if somebody doesn't have time to go back and get the full clip and see what came before, well, then that's what you run with, right? And then that lie runs around the world before the truth puts its pants on. So that's the thing that you do. If you want to avoid being misunderstood, you will take part of the question and include it in your answer. But in terms of the answer itself, there's nothing wrong with this answer from Gregor Robinson. There's nothing wrong with this answer. So those are those three here that we talked about. The other one, which we didn't have an opportunity to show you, was the sort of big news of the day. So predictably, one could say, Prime Minister Mark Carney, he had the meeting with all his cabinet, first meeting, and then invited cameras in, and he signed a little something, and that was the thing with regard to the tax cut. And remember, Prime Minister Carney during the election campaign promised that he would lower the tax rate on the lowest tax bracket from 15% to 14%. So basically everybody in the country gets a tax cut on the amount of money that they make between the basic personal amount and I think about $55,000, the first $55,000. That doesn't matter if you're rich or whatever. The only way that you don't get a benefit from this is if you don't make more than the basic personal amount in order to be able to qualify for that. But if you do, everybody's going to get something. I'm not sure that that was the best way to design that tax cut. Probably could have been income tested a little bit more. But then again, right, every citizen equally gets a benefit. Is a story that can go over a little more smoothly because when you income test something, well, then you have to spend time explaining that as well. And again, in politics, often when you're explaining, you're losing. But income testing in Canada is a concept that is still pretty solid. I mean, it's there in the Canada Dental Plan, for example. Even in the GST cut on the prices of housing. Liberal Promise has a GST cut on prices of houses up until about like $1 million or so, or just over, and then up until $1.5 million. There is still one, but it's a lower cut. It's not a full cut of the full GST. So again, if you have more money to buy a bigger house, you'll still get a little bit of benefit, but you'll still get some benefit, but less after a certain amount, because if you can afford that much house, then maybe you don't need that benefit as much as anybody else does. So there are these types of things with regard to budgeting and issuing stuff in Canada that can work. With the tax cut, that's going ahead July 1st. I assume that the session of Parliament will open. We'll have the selecting the speaker, speech from the throne, all that initial stuff, and then there'll be some ways and means measures. Because we don't have a full budget yet, to be able to bring in that tax cut and some stuff having to do with interprovincial trade barriers. A lot of provinces have already started on that. Yesterday, I think it was, Ontario announced that it had signed a deal with Manitoba. It has signed deals previously, I think, with New Brunswick and another province that I can't remember off the top of my head. I think there might be a couple of other provinces that have already started doing some things among each other, but that type of work has already started. And then, of course, at the early June, we're going to have the Prime Minister has already committed to having a face-to-face First Ministers meeting in Saskatchewan. So that's going to happen. And then when we were talking about the schedule, so the Cabinet announced Parliament will resume around the 26th, speech from the throne on the 27th, the meeting with the premiers on the 1st and 2nd, the G7 meeting on the 15th, the 17th, from the 15th to the 17th. And we thought that somewhere between the meeting with the premiers and that G7 meeting that's when the budget would be tabled in June. It seems not. This is an interesting move. We expected a zig, and Prime Minister Carney is zagging here. So it seems that the session of Parliament that we are going to have is going to be relatively short because there is a summer break and because budget usually happens in April, and given that we were in an election, we didn't actually have a budget. And usually there's a big consultative process for the budget and all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure if any of that has happened yet. I'm sure that there are some things that have happened because, again, the public service keeps on being the public service, regardless of whatever turmoil is going on in partisan politics, and budgets are annual processes and consultation periods. I mean, all these things are anchored. There's a book for this about how we go about doing this, and it's followed. So these things probably did start as would in the normal course of government, but how far along it is. Because at some point this does have to come to the cabinet table, to the minister's table. Somebody has to make some decisions, and there hasn't been that structure there for a while. So that's what we would have expected, that François-Philippe Champagne probably would have gone into hiding for the next couple of weeks and would have given us a budget, maybe like June 9th, June 10th, something of the type of thing. That is not going to happen. I don't know if the Prime Minister had announced it first himself or whether it was the Minister of Finance who announced it, but there is going to be no springtime budget. It seems that Parliament will reconvene. They will pass some measures. I don't know. I would assume that there might be some worker protection measures as well with regard to tariffs and stuff like that. That will pass a couple of other things. And then it seems that it'll be a very active, short burst of a session, and then we'll close for the summer, and then we'll come back from the fall. And it seems that when we come back in the fall, we still will not be getting a full budget, but a fall economic statement. That might be much more detailed, almost maybe budget-like than the fall economic statements that we usually get. And remember, the one that we just had wasn't really, I mean, it was given, but I mean, it was prepared, and that was the day that Chrystia Freeland did, resign, and Karina Gould had to read it at the last minute. And well, whatever was in it didn't get much play because there was too much drama. So there was a fall economic statement that happened last fall, but nobody really remembers it because of all the drama. No budget this year, this spring, and then fall economic statement. That might be more substantive, but no. It looks like we might actually not have a budget at all for this fiscal year. We're going to do the entire year on Ways and Means motions, which is really weird. And particularly from a government that is led by two-time central banker, or money and finances are supposed to be their thing. So I'm not exactly sure why this is. I saw some interviews with François-Philippe Champagne. There was a long 13-minute interview on Power and Politics yesterday. He did not. I was not satisfied with the explanation, and not like satisfied as in I have expectations about what the precise content or reason for this should be, but in terms of expectations for a certain rigor of thought and analysis. But whatever your decision is on how you got there, I don't necessarily expect if you tell me that I'm going to agree with it or the soundness of it or all that, but I do expect at home to have gotten the sense or the impression that this is something that you guys thought about a lot, put a lot of rigorous thought into, debated vigorously, and then came to this decision. And when that happens, not only are you able to tell us what the decision is, but then you are able to very much explain to us in a very concise but cogent manner and effective manner why. So it's one of those things, like, for example, you can tell me what you believe, and that's one thing. But if you can't tell me why it is you believe what you believe, then how much do you really believe it? So that's what I'm looking at. That's what I was looking for in the answer, that there was uh, a lot that there was a lot of reflection and detail, and that not that they maybe agonized over the decision, but they really went into it like this is it. But we could do this, but if we do this, this means this, and if we don't do that, it means this instead. And they really weighed it and then decided, you know what, like this, like at this particular time, this particular moment, we decided that. Like, had the decision been, well, look at everything that's going on in the United States, right? Where the stock markets are going all over the place. There's a bit of a tariff one day, not a tariff another day. There's another exception. There's another carve out. So it's hard to do a budget with that, because as soon as we would do it, well, the budget would probably be like expired maybe the next day if Trump said something. So what we're going to do is we're going to start this. We're going to do some ways and means, stuff like this. Make sure the tax cut has taken place and all of that, and we're going to get a vibe for how things are going with the United States. And once we start to get some discussions and we start to get some stable ground that this is what the situation is going to be like for at least the next 6 months rather than the next 2 days, then we might have something, a basis on which to actually found a budget that will have a shelf life that's longer than the time it takes me to read it. That's a concept I can understand. But it was sort of like, well, there's priorities and we need to do this and we have to be prudent and we have to, and there were some words, but the thought, how we got from point A, right? There's a bunch to do to point B. Well, we're May now, like this, and we might not be able to do one in June, but when we come back in September or in October, we're still going to prevent a fall economic statement rather than a budget. I need more than, well, we need to be prudent. I need a substantive why I can sink my teeth in that's meaty. And I did not get that from that interview with François-Philippe Champagne. Now, of course, right? Not new to the job in that he was Minister of Finance prior in that shuffle that happened before. But I mean, he's still a Minister of Finance that has clearly never presented a budget yet at that point, and was not in his first priority after being named, was not going to be doing the budget consultative process. So him as minister hasn't done any of that yet. So I can understand why you might want more time. And I mean, you could have just said that. Right? Well, the budget consultation process takes about this much time, and well, we normally would start that, but we had a party leadership race, and then we went immediately into election. So we're starting our consultative process like 5 or 6 months behind the time we normally would have. So that would delay the budget, 5 to 6 months. And well, if we normally deliver it in April, and 5 to 6 months is October and whatnot, well, and we already do a fall economic statement. Let's just do a substantive fall economic statement. We'll do the actual budget the following spring. Okay, that's something I can follow. Right, just timelines make it such that the budget and the full economic statement would happen within a month and a half of each other. So we'll just do this. But there's no reason for which we cannot have some type of document between sometime during the summer, like before July 1st, before the tax cut, or before they introduce that legislation, that gives us an overall snapshot of where we are right now in this current year, how we're doing and whatnot. And, if we spend $5 or $6 billion on that, what does that mean for us based on what we see projections and modeling coming in, right? I mean, right now we're looking at a first U.S. quarter that contracted. That was not the case 3 months ago. That changes a lot of things in the budgetary process, because a lot of people would suspect that contraction is coming here too. So that's what I mean. There's a lot of stuff that can go in there. There's a lot of legitimate reasons that you can delay this and say not now. But this is a very unconventional move for a government not to present a springtime budget. And especially, again, when you have a prime minister who's known for their financial acumen, why would somebody make this decision? So that's a decision I would have had the prime minister himself make, not the minister of finance, and to provide that rationale, and then send the minister of finance out. Because there's not going to be a budget this spring. It seems to me it should be a prime ministerial announcement, not just a minister of finance announcement. So that may have been the thing that could have been done better there, is let the guy that does have the financial background explain to the nation why something is not going to be happening at the usually expected time this year. So that one is that one's a bit of a fail. Out of all of the four things, this is the one that's probably going to have the most legs over the next day. The Greg Robertson thing, you're going to stop some conservatives running and like playing that clip 3 years later, right? Just like China, Trudeau's clip about China. Well, yeah, it's as an environmentalist, well, yeah, of course, if we lived in a dictatorship, it would be great for the environment so that I can move really quickly, but we don't, right? So, and then of course, there's living in a dictatorship, which is not great either. So, yes, pointing out the obvious fact that if you live in a dictatorship, well, then obviously, yes, you can move on climate action if you unilaterally decide that you're going to much more quickly than a democratic nation where you have to do the education piece and bring everyone along. That makes sense, right? But they still ran with that, or the budget will balance themselves, right? We've explained that one along with the whole context of that, and they ran with that too, right? So that's what I mean. This thing from Gregor Robertson, this thing from Stephen Guilbeault could be something that people run with and point to, like for the next 2 years. Go, but what you said, like this, even though that was taken out of context and all of that. So there could be some play on that, but that will just be the typical conservative fun and games and stuff. But the budget one is the one that could have legs and last, because every day there is not a budget until there is a budget. The question can be asked, and why not now? And why not now? And why not now? Why not now? And again, our media seems to be very good at that type of journalism rather than the other kind, unfortunately. So this is, again, an extremely unconventional move that introduces a shit ton of noise into the message, particularly on the Prime Minister's core competency, the reason for which we elected him, not only to manage Trump specifically, but to actually bring the country financially into another direction. And then the first move is, we're going to do something a little unconventional on the budget, and there's no extremely substantive reason given for it that you can take, oh, that makes sense, and just walk away. So there is going to need to be some work on that one. That could create a problem for the government that will last several months. Because if they're going to wait until next April, that's a one-year question to table the budget. I wouldn't want that. I would not advise that. I would not have advised this move. I would have advised maybe making a quick spring economic statement, with a budget to follow in the early fall. But no economic statement now, with a fall economic statement in October, and no word on when the budget will come, or whether or not there will even be a budget this fiscal year. That's not strong. It's not strong, and I would not have recommended it. There's some unnecessarily political capital being spent here on this one. Trust me, I've got this. Yeah, we did trust you. You got this. That's why we voted for you. But I don't know. I don't think that this is a judicious move. Again, I do not know everything, because again, I did not get that meaty answer. So hopefully that meaty answer will come, and then the light will go on. Oh, okay, well, of course, then it has to be the spring, right? Duh, just makes sense. But I don't have that at the moment, so I can't say it. Because I would assume, being of good faith, that there is a reason, and it just hasn't been communicated clearly yet. And hopefully the Prime Minister will come out today and bat a little cleanup on that. But yeah, right now, if I'm being completely honest, I cannot tell you, kids and cups, at this moment that this is a sound or a wise idea, or that this is based in something that's absolutely necessary for this to be happening, or for it to be done right. I can make some educated guesses based on what's going on in the world and what I'm observing, but I can't tell you that that's it. there's literally been nothing I can hook something onto to say, okay, this is what they mean by this and this is where they're going. So if you're confused, it's not you, it's them, because I follow this a lot and I'm not clear on what it is. So just to let you know, if you are confused, you should be, because it is confusing. All right. The problem's not that you do not understand what's going on, or you don't have any capacity to get it, or that this must be something that's better minds, or more educated minds, or more knowledgeable or expert minds understand. No, this is just odd. All right. So and we'll wait to see what comes out of it. But I do, based on everything I know of this man that I've seen at the moment, I do believe that there is an actual cogent reason. This just hasn't been properly explained. Like the first dash out of the starting blocks had maybe a trip over a shoelace type thing going on this one. All right, kids and cabs, taking a look at some other stuff, because we didn't open with the tidbits today, because Mr. Grizzly had to go, and I wanted to make sure that we got his opinion on these things. But there are a couple of little things, well, little things, some of them are actually rather big here. In Terrebonne, it would appear that Elections Canada has declared that they are declaring the result final, despite the ticket labeling thing that involved that one vote. It seems that the leader of the Bloc Québécois will have a press availability around 11 a.m., for which he's going to be accompanied by the party's House Leader, Christine Normandin, and the candidate in question, Nathalie Saint-Clair-Desgagnés. So we'll hear what it is that they have to say about that. That will be at around 11 a.m. this morning, that is going to be taking place. Just taking a look here to see, because there was a news article here with it from CBC. This is from Catherine Morrison. It says here, Elections Canada says the result of a recount in the federal riding of Terrebonne is final, despite a misprint that led to one special ballot being returned to sender. Elections Canada says there was an error on the envelope used to mail a special ballot from Terrebonne, Quebec riding. The Liberals won by a single vote after a recount. Preliminary results indicated that the Liberals had won the riding, but the seat flipped temporarily to the Bloc Québécois after the results were validated. After a judicial recount that gave the seat back to the Liberals, however, CBC News reported that a Bloc voter saw her mail-in ballot returned to her. The agency says an analysis confirmed that part of the return address on the envelope destined for a local Elections Canada office, the last 3 characters of the postal code, was incorrect. Despite the error and questions about the possibility of another recount or a by-election, Elections Canada spokesperson Matthew McKenna said, quote, the result of the recount is final. The Canada Elections Act does not explicitly provide for the appeal of a judicial recount, and Elections Canada is unaware of any appeals brought to a court following a recount, said McKenna. Elections Canada said that this is the only case they know of in the recent election of an envelope containing a marked ballot being returned to a voter because of an incorrect address. McKenna said the returned vote was never part of the recount. Quote, any vote that doesn't get to us on time to wherever it's meant to go, whether it's the local office or to our accounting facility in Ottawa, the law basically dictates that it can't be counted, he said. Quote, so even if it's something that happens as a result of an error on our part, there's really no mechanism for that to be counted. McKenna said that the only thing that could lead to a change in the result is someone officially contesting it. Quote, anyone can make an application to a judge to say that they want the results of the election to be reviewed, he said. There's possibility that that happens. As far as I'm aware, nobody's put forward such an application yet. And then I've been watching other things. It seems that in most places where there is a tie, if there should be a tie, it would be the chief returning officer who would cast the vote, because the chief returning officer in an election actually does not vote in an election in order to be impartial. They don't vote. So if there was a tie, usually it would go to them. Say, okay, well, now you need to cast a vote. In certain, that's true in most places. I think back in 2015, however, in PEI, there was a tie vote, and in that instance, rather than running a whole other by-election or having the chief electoral officer cast a returning vote, they did it with a coin flip. I believe they were the only jurisdiction at that time to have that as the law, that it would be a coin flip. I don't know if it's changed since then, but that was back in 2015. But usually the standard is that would be the chief electoral officer would cast the deciding vote, because they, by design, do not get to vote in the election, so that nobody can say, well, the chief electoral officer, he was pro-liberal, so that's why that writing went liberal on a regular vote count. Right? The only time that would happen is if it's tied, and then the chief electoral officer has to cast your personal vote as a citizen to break the tie. So that happened. So that looks like it's going to, for now, unless somebody actually files an actual contestation, that will be the case. That will remain in liberal hands. In the Terra Nova, the peninsulas, the recount has started. That happened on Monday. On Tuesday, the judicial recount started in Milton East, Halton Hills South, if I remember correctly. I hope I got that one right, because I'm just doing that one from memory. It seems that the recount in Terra Nova, the peninsulas, will take a whole lot longer than expected, because it seems that when they went through all the votes, because there's a whole team there, it seems that they've decided that they wanted the judge to look at well over 1,000 different votes. So there's 1,000 votes. I guess that not everybody completely agreed. This goes in this pile, this goes in the other. So send that to the judge. That's probably a whole lot more than that would be expected. 1,000, 1,200, 1,400 votes or something like that in a riding in which about 41,000 were cast. I think people might have expected maybe 100 or something, or 70 something. So that will take a while. So we might not get that result for a few days. According to electoral law, it seems that when there is a judicial recount, the count has to continue during the course of the weekend, if there is a weekend, even a long weekend. So it seems that that process will continue on, even though we will have to wait more than a few days. I mean, it started on Tuesday, and we're already Thursday. Normally, it's a 2 to 3 day process. So we could have been expecting some results today, and that might not. That is definitely not going to happen in that electoral district. So we'll have to be a little more patient there, kids and cubs, to find out what happened. And also in some little tidbit news that we had, because normally we start the show with these, but we did them at the end so that we could hear from Mr. Grizzly. There's tragedy in Manitoba, because wildfire season has started up again. And Manitoba this year seems to be the first hit. And unfortunately, 2 fellow citizens passed away as a result. According to Caitlin Garlick of CBC News, title of the article, "Worst fears confirmed as 2 people trapped by wildfire die in southeastern Manitoba." The bodies of a man and a woman who got trapped as a wildfire burned near the community of Lac-du-Bonnet in southeastern Manitoba were recovered by police Wednesday morning, RCMP say. Quote, "This has been an incredibly challenging time for the community, and no doubt today's tragic news will make it even more difficult," Superintendent Chris Hasty, commander of the Manitoba's RCMP's East District, said at a news conference Wednesday afternoon. Mounties got a report Tuesday that people had been stranded by the out-of-control wildfire in the area, but first responders couldn't get to them until Wednesday morning because of the extreme conditions. By the time the officers arrived, quote, we were able to confirm our worst fears," said Hasty. adding police can't confirm the victims' identities until their autopsies are done. It's believed they died from injuries sustained in the fire, he said. The bodies were discovered just off Wendigo Road in the rural municipality of Lac-du-Bonnet, about 100 kilometers northeast of Winnipeg, said Hasty, adding there are no additional reports of unaccounted people related to the wildfire there. As of Wednesday afternoon, that fire, one of more than 20 burning across Manitoba, was estimated to be about 4,000 hectares in size. Another fire northeast of Lac-du-Bonnet area near Manitoba's Nopming Provincial Park along the Ontario border was listed as being 100,000 hectares on Wednesday. Jeez. Lauren Schinkel, the RM of Lac-du-Bonnet's Rive, said the deaths will rock what he described as a very close-knit community. Quote, I think it's needless to say that the whole community will be grieving with the family, Schinkel said at the news conference. Hasty said while he knows people are anxious to check on their properties, he asked residents to avoid the active fire area and let crews do their work since conditions can change quickly. There are already dangers in the area, such as hot spots, downed hydro lines, and structures that have become unsafe, he said. As well, drone activity in the region had already resulted in some firefighting aircraft being grounded, said Hasty. RCMP are also at 3 checkpoints along Highway 313, which runs east from the town of Lac-du-Bonnet, to ensure only emergency vehicles are allowed into the active fire zone, he added. Hundreds have already been forced out of the cottage country community in eastern Manitoba as the raging wildfire near Lac-du-Bonnet quickly grew in intensity through the late afternoon and evening Tuesday. There was a significant loss of buildings around the community's Wendigo Beach, said Schinkel. Hot weather, dry conditions, and very windy days have caused multiple fires to erupt in Manitoba, forcing people out of their homes and burning buildings, and forecast rain is not enough to help much, fire officials said on Wednesday. 6 states of emergency have been declared in Manitoba, and several provincial parks, local authorities, northern communities, and cottage subdivisions have issued mandatory evacuation orders. The fires in Lac-du-Bonnet and Nopming areas are among 5 listed as out of control on the provincial fire map as of Wednesday afternoon. Christine Stevens, an assistant deputy minister with Manitoba's emergency management organization, said at Wednesday's news conference the province is, quote, doing everything it can to make sure that people are safe. That includes the closure of the nearby Whiteshell Provincial Park on Thursday morning, she said. Another out-of-control fire near the community of Libo, or Libo, Libau, I'm not sure how that's pronounced, about 50 kilometers west of Lac-du-Bonnet, was listed Wednesday as being about 5,000 hectares in size. These are big fires. While those fires were all detected in the last few days, the province also continues to battle an out-of-control wildfire near the northwestern Manitoba town of The Pas that's been burning since May 3rd. As of Wednesday, that fire was estimated to have reached 42,650 hectares in size. Wow. And just for those who are wondering, a hectare is a metric unit of an area equal to a square with 100 meter sides. So a 100 meter by 100 meter area. So 42,650 times 100 meters by 100 meters is the size of that fire. So again, like this, we're just ridiculously huge ones here. And then, of course, right, the one near Nopming Provincial Park, that one is 100,000 hectares. That's the largest of them so far. So these are massive, just massive, massive fires. Our hearts go out to our deepest sympathies to the families and their friends and everybody who of the 2 people who lost their lives. This is an incredible tragedy. I cannot imagine the fear that must have been people must have been going through at that moment. That's a particularly horrendous way for lives to end. Yeah. Um, I really don't know what to say in these situations. I'm not often at a loss for words. It's just so sad. But yeah, wildfire season. It's back, and we're probably going to be getting a lot of more stories of this over the course of the summer. So remember, kids and cubs, if you live in an area that is prone to wildfires, please uh, do your emergency preparedness. The water, food, that type of stuff. Make sure you have some in your trunk of your car. Make sure that you have an evacuation bag already packed, ready to go. Important papers, documents, medications, insurance things, birth certificates, your important documents. Make sure you have them because those are sometimes harder, trickier to replace. Listen to the warnings. Right? Listen to when people tell you to evacuate. Don't hesitate. Don't be a hero. Don't try to stay. Don't put emergency responders at bigger risk for them having to come back and do a second sweep to try and find you because you stayed. Just row in the same direction as the rest of the team. Remember, even though you work hard for them, they are things. And lives matter, right? People before things. So make sure you and your loved ones stay alive, and things can be replaced. Okay, but make the smart decisions. Okay? We need you in the game. Kids and cubs. Sorry, a little tough news to end the show there. I think that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember that sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate it when you do. Kids and cubs, if you would like to make sure that you do not miss an episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show, because, sometimes you're not able to watch us live because, you're an active person, you're on the go, you're busy, you're making things happen. So if that is the case, well, hey, because we like to help, take us with you. We're portable, fun-sized even. Just download us because we have an ears-only version of our show. So you can just download us to your favorite podcast player and then put us in your ears. And if you're going for a jog or, hey, maybe if you're driving in your car, you can put us on your player and we can keep you a little company for a while. Right? So if you go to our pod page, that's podpage.com/the truenortheagerbeaver with the hyphen between each one of those words, or if you're watching and you scan that QR code that has been made so generously available, thanks to the Ray Girl, that will bring you to our pod page. And if you go there and click subscribe, every time we have something fresh off the bandwidth in podcast form, it will come directly to you and don't even have to go looking for it. We make it super easy. So there you go. Take us with you if you're on the go. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like to support us by joining formally, a little more formally than them, like, for example, becoming a subscriber on the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, like 18,000 of you have already done, well, then that QR code that just magically appeared will bring you right there if you scan it. And Kids Lady Cassie will be there welcoming you with open arms, saying, hey, click with our buttons. And if you're watching, smash now. You'll have to remember to do it before you leave. So if you like to smash, again, we love to accommodate. Like, share, and subscribe. We have 3 buttons. Click 1, click 2, hey, get freaky. Click all of them. We don't judge. And we're very, very, very happy when you do it. It helps us with the algorithm. So we thank you for all of your help. Now, if you would like to help us in yet another way, in a way that might be a little more substantive, at least if we're talking about finances, well, we do incur some costs in terms of bringing this show for you. Internet subscriptions, media subscriptions, antivirus software, all that kind of stuff. Every now and then, like last year, we had to buy a new computer. Sometimes we need to upgrade our mics, things like that. Well, hey, we would really appreciate some help from the damn family with that. And you can do that by making a contribution to the Eager Beaver Lodge Emergency Hydration Fund, which is available ding, on our coffee page. That QR code that just appeared will bring you right there. We ask people to buy us a cup of coffee, or in my case, a mug of hot chocolate, and to say, add a beaver or add a grizzly if you like what we do and you think that what we do resonates with you and has some value. So, coffee, that's spelled ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word, is where you go and you will find the emergency hydration fund here at the Beaver Lodge. Also, our tip jar. And if you drop a little couple of coins in there, the lovely jingling sound that it makes not only brings joy into our hearts, and it earns you our undying gratitude, which is absolutely something extremely special. Don't take that for granted. But it also makes you instantly 17.8% more interesting to parties. It does. It's magnetic. People just look, oh, there's an informed and engaged person. I think I need to have a conversation. They look like, I could have a very, very wonderful time with this person. If you would like to increase your magnetism, tipping is very, very sexy. Now, kids and cubs, if you're not able to contribute financially, no worries. Please, no worries. Because the gifts of your attention and participation are the ones that matter the most to us. And we love it when you join us for our show. And we absolutely love hearing from you. So please write to us. truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is our email address. Send us your comments. What you like about the show. What you think we could improve. Guests. And of course, we have a Q&A initiative going on. We would like to do a question and answer show. So please send us your questions. Anything about politics that you would like our takes on that we haven't talked about, or anything, or that's just on your mind. Hey, I wonder what Mr. Beaver and Mr. Grizzly think about that. Ask us. If you want to know what it is, how it is we put the show together, you want to know what goes on behind the scenes here, hey, go ahead. Ask us. You want to know what I had for lunch? Ask. No question. I was going to say there are no dumb questions. I like to believe that until I meet one. But let's just assume there are no dumb questions. All right? So ask away. It's your show too. We want to hear from you. If you want to communicate with us in other ways, our socials are open at True Eager at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge, and also at the Bad Place on the Shitter, True North Eager Beaver on Facebook, our original home on the web. And if you're listening here on YouTube, either with the Damn Fam or later on, down here in the comment section, just leave us a little word. We read absolutely everything. We're not able to communicate back with everyone, unfortunately. The volume is starting to get a little high. We'd be doing almost nothing but that. But we do love hearing from you, so please keep them coming. Now, that email address, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, is also where you can send a direct contribution to the show if you would like to, because, you're still doing the Buy Canadian thing. And thank you for doing that. If you are, thank you so very much. You can make a transaction with your bank and ours, which completely avoids the American CE Tech Bros. And as a bonus, make sure that we get 100% of your contribution as intended. So, hey, why not contribute today? Good. I sound like a commercial all of a sudden. Contribute today. Oh, that Planned Parenthood goat. I love him. That's right. Shop today. Oh, that's what I had in my mind. I love that goat. I don't know why. I just always loved that goat. Let's see what else. Not Planned Parenthood. What am I talking about? Plan Canada. Oh my God, my mind. Plan Canada, the charity, often the Christmas commercial. Right? You see, a great organization, by the way. My Beaver Sweetie and I have supported it a few times, especially they have a often they have this whole catalog of things you can donate, and often some of the donations are even matched, so that the dollar goes further. So it's a worthwhile organization, and they do a lot of good. Because democracy is something that you do, kids and cubs. I think I was going somewhere with the previous point. I don't know if I completed it because I got caught up in the fact that I screwed up on Land Canada. So if that was an errant thought that I didn't complete, I apologize. All right, kids and cubs, because democracy is something that you do. There's a Quebec Liberal leadership race going on. The vote is June 9th to 14th. Got it right today, with the results coming on July 14th. Remember, kids and cubs, also democracy is something that you do. Writing letters is always a wonderful thing. So, for example, if you live in Ontario and you have a problem with what Doug Ford is planning to do with Bill 5, I think, which is these sort of like economic opportunity zones or something like that, in which it seems that the plan right now is like for zero labor laws to apply. That would probably be something that you would like to write your provincial government about and say, no. So write a letter. That might be good. If you're in Alberta, same thing with regard to treaty land or separation or all that kind of stuff, or the AHS scandal, or Choo Choo Kitty, making sure that her husband may or may not have benefited financially from a deal. Anything like that. Write to your MLAs, write your MPPs, write to senators, write your MPs, write media, just write letters. Right? Put things on the agenda. It's very, very important. All right. Words of wisdom. You know, kids and cubs, I'm not sure I have much wisdom for you today, to be totally honest. But yesterday, at one point, there was something that I wanted to do, maybe even slightly needed, but it wasn't critical. But I really, really did want to do it. But I was tired. I was just tired. And you know what? I chose to rest instead. And I chose not to feel guilty about not doing the thing that wasn't done. So I guess my thing would be is that if you need some rest, take it, and remember that guilt is a useless emotion. Right? That's the best I got for you at the moment. It's not particularly deep. Kids and cubs, it can be a tough world out there. So please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And now, kids and cubs, my pretties, a time for a little bit of audience participation. If you would, on the count of 3, I need to hear all of your beautiful, harmonic, melodious voices simultaneously, urging me, Mr. Beaver, please, please, cue the cock. On 1, 2, whoops, the camera sort of moved. Let's try that again. On 1, 2, 3, bring it in. That's the good stuff right there, kids and cubs. Happy to oblige.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.
All right, kids and cubs, Just a quick little Easter egg for you, talking a couple of Canadians who made us proud. Name that you've heard before on the show because we keep on talking about her, Victoria Mboko, tennis player, probably a little prodigy here from what it looks like, playing in her next tournament in Parma, Italy, and doing very well. I don't think we mentioned about her final game in that big tournament in Rome because we had mentioned that she had won a huge match and had a chance to play Coco Gauff, who was ranked number 3 in the world. And Victoria Mboko actually did really well. She won the first set in that. So she started the year 330 something, is about like 100, was ranked 156 or something like that going into that tournament, and played the number 3 in the world and won the first set. And then maybe got a little case of, oh my God, I actually think I can win this itis. And, did not win the match, but then immediately went back to the next tournament and started her winning ways again there. And Marina Stakusic, who is another phenom in Canada who's been having a little bit of a tougher year, is at that same tournament and is having a good week this week, winning a couple of matches, and is currently on court right now against a Swiss player. And right now they're tied 1 set apiece as they start the 3rd set. So interesting to see what happens for them too. Cheering for them. Both of them are in the rankings, like hovering around the top 100 in the world, like just under like 123, 130 something right now. So both of them have quite the opportunity of entering the top 100 in the world really shortly. And then Rebecca Marino is right around 107. So it could very much be the possibility that before the end of this year that Canada has up to 5 women in the world's top 100 tennis players in singles if this continues. So there's something brewing there. So keep looking at that, Kits and Cubs. And remember that at 2:30 this afternoon Eastern Time, if you are able to watch, Team Canada versus Team Austria. Yes, Austria, that is, at the IIHF World Hockey Championships. And of course, tonight, if you are still following the Stanley Cup stuff, as we are hoping that a Canadian team will win, well, then at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, or at 8:30 p.m. local time, the Winnipeg Jets will be facing the Dallas Stars, and the Jets will be trying to maintain their position in this series because the Stars lead it 3-1. So the Jets they're back up against it. So let's make sure that we have a good whiteout today, and that the Jets can stay in for a little longer, because we would love to see that all-Canadian final. Okay, that's all I got for you today, Kits and Cubs. Have a most beaverific day, and we will see you tomorrow. Amour et gros bisous.